Listen up. If you're struggling to climb, you are the problem. You fight too much, you throw your leads, and you don't know how to carry. But here's the thing. You also know you can do better. You can climb. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. I'm Coach Mysterias, one of the best mid lane coaches in the world, and in this video, I'll show you the exact blueprint on how to climb from Unranked to Masters step by step. And here's the kicker. I won't just give you the strategy, I'll show you how to coach yourself. By the end of this deep dive, you're going to understand exactly how to actually lane, how to snowball your lead, how to master and play out the mid game, how to create your own perfect champion pool using the champion pool trinity, and eventually I'm going to share techniques that will allow you to coach yourself, review yourself so you can climb better. Now, climbing on mid isn't about spamming games or praying for better teammates. It's about understanding the game fundamentals. And that starts with step 1, lane. I'll be honest, most players have no idea how to lane. They fight at wrong times, they die to ganks, they reset badly, and it keeps them stuck. But here's the good news. Laning is much simpler than you think, and in this step I'll break down how to actually lane and build real leads. So what is lane actually about? Well, lane is at its highest level a resource war. And the goal of the lane is to try to get out of the lane as strong as humanly possible, while in the meantime making the enemies as weak as humanly possible, so you can get an edge and an advantage in the fights happening later in the game. That's what lane's all about. And a lot of people make the mistake that they overforce or they tunnel vision on trying to kill the enemy laner all the time, and they lose a lot of CS in the process, actually leading them to be behind of the curve, not going to be able to deal with the fat enemy jacks on top lane because they haven't farmed enough. So the art of laning and the art of trading is understanding that lane is a resource war. Every single minion is a resource that we want to be playing for. We want to get as much farm while denying the enemies as much farm as possible. So this shifts and shapes the way that we want to be trading in lane. And I showcase that really well through this example. My mindset here in this lane is I'm going to be fully focusing on trying to get as many minions as possible. I'm just going to get as strong as possible by playing Victor. I want to get my stacks. I want to get my farm to skill into the late game. And I'm also going to trade with Zoe. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to trade whenever she needs to walk up from minions. So I'm going to make sure to hit my minions first. And then when I've already lost my minions, I'm going to try to time my abilities onto her last hits. You see how I'm waiting with throwing out my E until she needs to CS. In this case, I didn't need to CS myself, so I waited with using my E. And I'm just waiting for the right time for her to walk up, and then I'll slowly chip away at her health bar. This is going to get me lane control. Beautiful E timed with the last hit right there. That is what laning is all about. I've hit every single minion, and I've pressured her a little bit on her minions, granting me a small health advantage, giving me control over the lane. This is what lane's all about. Focus on your farm first, then focus on trading. And don't randomly shoot out your abilities. You're not trading if you're randomly shooting out your abilities. You're fighting if you're doing that. And fighting, there's always a bit of risk involved, and we want to have high percentage lanes. So we want to throw our abilities and we want to trade on times when the enemies need to last hit. That's when it becomes high percentage, and we can force the enemies to make a decision between the minion and between trading back. Now, I want to talk about your first ward. Every single time you're going to go into a lane, guys, you need to preemptively think about when and where you're going to be throwing out your first ward. Because your first ward is so important when it comes to tracking the enemy jungle, and it's really important for giving your teammates information on your jungle. It's not something that we just do in mid lane. You need to help your team with this first ward. So this is my exact thought process, and I want you guys to replicate this for your games. I'm just copy and paste it. I've done the work for you, so you can just paste it. What I want you to do is, if you do not get priority in the lane, I want you to place a ward 1 minute 15 onto the enemy raptors to spot the enemy's first jungle timer, so you know where to lean in lane and you give your team some information and vision. If you do get priority, I recommend warding after the second wave, before the third wave, so in between wave 2 and 3. And then there's two types of wards you can go for. You can either ward the enemy raptors, once again giving you information on where the enemy jungle is clearing towards, or you can ward towards the side, so you can lean and you can get some cover for yourself. And it really depends on the threat of the enemy jungle as well. And in this case, I use it to lean, so I can instantly pressure Zoe. You have to understand that there's certain gank timers from the enemy jungle that you have to be aware of, which is usually after 3 camps and after a full clear. After 3 camps is usually around 2:30. Some champs are a bit faster, some champs are a bit slower. And after a full clear is usually around 3:30, 3:40 after the scuttle crab. These are key timers you have to be aware of. And your ward after the second wave really does a good job at protecting you from both of these timers, allowing you to play up really aggressively. Not that we're going to be mindlessly fighting, but that we're going to be just looking to trade onto the Zoe. Now, my favorite wave state is a slow pushing wave state. A slow pushing wave state, if you can get it, is just insanely strong. Because of the fact that a slow pushing wave state allows you to hit a minion, CS it, and then while the enemy still needs to CS their minion, you get a trading window, an opportunity to hit the enemy champion. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to constantly slow push waves into the Zoe, which is going to allow me to punish her onto her last hits while I've already lost my minion. So right here, I'm going to CS the cannon. I'm going to CS that minion. I know she needs to walk up, so I'm going to try to E her. Now, of course, sometimes you're going to miss some spells, but you have the mindset behind it that can help you win these trades in the long run. And you see that I'm in full control of the lane. Now, a big part of laning is, of course, trading onto the enemies, but it's also preventing damage taken. So one of the key mindsets that I want you guys to get into is the small wins oriented mindset, in which that we're going to be slowly chipping away at the enemy's HP bar. Trading is all about getting small resource advantages like I'm doing right here, and making sure that you don't get hit by the enemy spells in the meantime. And this is what a lot of people are struggling with, is that they don't anticipate the enemy champion throwing their spells back onto them. So your positioning has got to be in such a way that you got to constantly look at the enemies and at their movement and see if they actually throw their spells out on top of you, and how they're positioning. Are they moving into you? They might just throw your spells, and you want to tether them like that as well. But always keep in mind that they're going to try to hit you, and if you can anticipate the spells being thrown out, you can even take it to the next level, bait them out, giving you a massive cooldown advantage in the lane, which you can abuse in the lane itself. Now, we're going to get ganked if we're going to push, especially, and we're going to be in positions where we're vulnerable. That's good. I see a lot of people complaining in my coaching program, I'm getting ganked all the time. Tim, what do I do about it? And I say to them, great, you want to get ganked. Why is it good to get ganked? Because you can deny the enemy's jungle's time. You can waste their time, you can waste their resources, and best case scenario is if they help their laner with pushing out the wave. So they share XP, giving you small advantages in the lane. Now, I want to talk about some resets, because there's a lot of reset fundamentals that people don't understand. The goal in the lane is to try to get lane control in the first few levels. What we mean with that is that we want to have the ability to move upon the map. So resets are mainly done in such a way that we have a lane control reset. Sometimes you want to reset before the enemy champion, in which you get into a position where you can then get the push. You can get a reset cycle. Other times you want to do it after the enemy champion to get into a position where you can get a stronger item, which will then allow you to, for example, get into a position where we can now once again get lane control, where we can turn into the slow push. How we do that on melee champions, we're going to talk about that as well. But I want to talk a little bit about the reset cycle. And a reset cycle is something that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people, when they get pushed in, don't know how to get into a position of a slow push again. And this is how you do it. I will show you exactly right here. There's two ways. Way one is where you just let the wave push into your turret and you fully stall turret hits. So you play it very, very slow right here. You see that I'm maximizing turret hits, which means that the next wave is going to be stacking up closer towards my side. And because the wave is stacking up closer towards my side, it will now turn into a little bit of a slow push onto the Lux, because my minions will arrive before hers. If it would otherwise be stacking up in the middle, it would be a lot harder, because then her wave would arrive at the same time. Now, combining that with high value abilities onto the wave plus onto Lux puts me in a position right here where I have a fantastic position in which that I can slow push on top of her once again. Now, another solution, I'm going to go a little bit back here, is that instead of letting the wave crash, you can also hold the wave outside of your turret, creating that exact same position where the wave stacks up right here instead of in the center. But you don't want to do that with a lot of minions. You only want to do that with one singular minion. Otherwise, you're going to take too much HP. And you got to make sure that you do that when the enemies can't really contest you. Now, as a melee champion, right? A lot of people ask me, Tim, how do I get lane control as a melee champion? How do I get in a position where I do not permanently get pushed in? I don't know what to do. I understand. Lane control as a melee champion is a unique thing, because most melee champions have this struggle when it comes to access to the wave. They don't really have a lot of wave control. So what we got to do is we got to utilize the power of our trading to get lane control. For a lot of D-Shield second win champs, that is trading War of Attrition. So chunking the enemies down, playing on your resource regeneration, and then making sure that they get pushed out of the lane by us trading like that. There's also champs like Zed and Qiyana that don't really run D-Shield all that often. And for them, you need to play on all-in kill windows. So if you're playing Qiyana, just take a trade, put someone on 70% of HP. You're going to get lane control because you can one-shot them afterwards. So you gotta utilize your trading power to get control over the lane and over the wave. And that's a really important thing. So you see, as Yone right here versus Twisted Fate, I am just sending it with my ult. And I take this trade right here onto the TF, giving me full lane control. Here's the truth. Winning lane means nothing if you don't know how to use that lead. That's why so many mid laners go 3-0 early and still lose. Step 2 is about translating our lane leads into bigger leads and map control. Playing for objectives, syncing with our jungle, and building tempo that snowballs the game in our favor. So how do we actually translate our lead? Well, it's all about understanding when to play versus your lane versus when to play on the map. And that depends on a few different factors. The reality is, the moment we reach our wave clear breakpoint, the moment that everyone, especially in mid lane, can start nuking the waves real quickly, the map is going to be priority number 1. Because most of the time, we want to have a secondary win condition. We don't want to be the solo carry, because it's really hard to literally win your game on your own. You need to have some other strong members, and the goal of this stage in the game is to try to take advantageous fights. Advantageous positions is what you want to be creating. So most of the time, 90% of the games, we're going to be playing with our jungler. Yes, I know a lot of people don't like their jungle. Sometimes I don't like mine as well, but the jungle is going to be the playmaker, the tempo setter of the game most of the time. So one of the most crucial things for you to do is to keep your eyes constantly on your jungle and try to predict what they're going to be doing so we can help them with their plays. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, what we're also going to look at is the neutral objectives, because the neutral objective is where the plays and all the stuff on the map actually happens, and where your jungle is most of the time going to be pathing towards. If they don't, then tell them. We can influence a jungle by communication. You gotta keep that in mind. So the most important thing that we want to do at this stage in the game is keep up the lane control and start translating that control into different parts of the map. Now, how do we exactly do that? We do that, of course, by keeping up the push, keeping the enemies responding to your waves, and then in the meantime, we want to put our vision towards the side of the map that we want to be playing towards. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we got ourselves the E upgrade, and we now want to keep our eyes on the Nocturne on the minimap and actively figure out, okay, where is he and when is he going to play, especially when. So in this case, I'm now playing with Ryze, and I see that the Grubbies are coming up. So what I want to do is I want to have a pushing out wave state to match up with my jungle's timer on the Grubbies. You see that my jungle is in this case indecisive, he's resetting. So I go for one of the strongest wave states in the game, which is a held wave outside of my turret. This gives me a lot of flexible options, because I can either decide to hard push this wave afterwards, or what I can do, I can decide to keep it right there, wait for Nocturne to get back onto the map, and then start playing again. So the Ryze did a bit of a play on bot. I could have done a little bit better job pinging, but I instantly adapt with my wave states to try to match up for my Nocturne's tempo on the top side. And in this case, I know that Ryze is bot, so the chances of Nocturne getting contested is quite low. And that means that I'm going to feel comfortable to also hit the turret right here, knowing that he doesn't need help. So I keep nuking the wave, and I know that the Grubbies are secured, so I don't need to help him right now because of the fact that the enemies simply can't contest. So my mindset in this case is, okay, if the play on the map is actually secured, I'm now going to go towards extending my lead in the lane. So when the map stuff is gone, right, or when there's no play available, or when there's no objectives up, we're then going to look to extend our lead in the lane. And we do that through the exact same principle like we did at the early part of the lane. The way that we do this is through getting small win-oriented trades, keeping up the lane control, and slow push into them. Sometimes you need to slow push, sometimes we need to hard push. I'm going to elaborate on the differences in a second. So first of all, what I do right now is there's a play happening, and a lot of people would be saying, whoa, Tim, we need to reset. And I wouldn't disagree. We do need to reset. But it's also about when to actually reset, because my mindset in this case is about extending my lead. I want to snowball my lead. And the way that I do that is by actively recognizing when and where the plays are going to happen. what just happened is we just literally had a fight right here on mid, which means that the enemies are dead, which means that Nocturne and me used my Q cooldowns. So in this position, I actively need to make a decision, okay, when is the next play? Well, currently that's going to take quite a while because I want to play with my Nocturne, and Nocturne is a very ult-reliant champion that I want to play with. So in this case, I'm happy staying a little bit longer, even though I'm on a lot of gold, and since I'm on full resources, I'm allowed to stay. And I got my TP going up for 22 seconds, so what I can do in the meantime is I can extend my lead a little bit more on the lane right here, get myself a little bit of a stronger base before actually committing to the reset. Now, if a dragon would be spawning in 10 seconds right here, I just wanted to create a hypothetical scenario. If the dragon would be spawning in 10 or 20 or 30 seconds, I would nuke the wave, reset, move on the map. Purely because I don't want to give them the dragon for free. I don't want to be off the map whenever they're going to be taking the dragon. I want to be able to trade or at least contest, depending on what my Nocturne's, of course, also going to be doing. You always got to be flexible. You got to be in a position where you can contest, where you can be in control. So in this case, I now take myself a nice little reset. And because we recognize on the map right now that there's not really any clear plays happening, what I need to do is I need to put myself in a position where I'm now going to play for the next play timer. Well, when is that? Well, it's going to be a long while before the next dragons or objectives are going to be coming up. It's going to take at least 3.5 minutes. So this is a situation in which that there won't be too much action happening on the map. And there will be a lot more lane action right now in the later part of the lane. And this is also fine. And this changes the way that we're going to be playing the waves. What a lot of people do, and they make a lot of mistakes in this regard, is that they keep hard nuking, brute forcing every wave. Bam, Victor E. Bam, Syndra QE combo. Yone just nuking the wave. Well, that's not smart here. Because if we nuke the wave, the enemy can then take everything for free under turret. So the way that we want to go about it is we want to play smarter. Fast pushing only works if you want to make a play right now on the map, or if you want to completely avoid the lane, because you're basically trading waves with fast pushes. We want to now turn into either a held wave or into a slow pushing wave state, because this is going to allow us to pressure the enemy a little bit more. And the way that we're going to do that right here is by doing the exact same trick. Hold the wave slightly on our side, and I'm going to start poking the rise in the meantime. I learned from my previous mistake, I do some pings here. And as you can see, I keep 1 minion alive in this spot, which is going to allow me to have the next wave stack up close towards my side. And look how far that rise is now forced to step up to contest this wave state, allowing me really free poke on top of him. Every single time he walks up, I can step up aggressively. I'm stronger than him. I don't want to give him a free lane right now. Beautiful E. Unfortunately, missed the cannon. No one saw that. And we're now in this position where we can get control of the rise. And you see how I'm matching up my wave state with my Nocturne's aggression as well. Let's go a little bit back. Look at what's actually happening with my Nocturne. I don't have to have offensive wave states right now because my Nocturne is literally farming. I don't want to play on the map. I want to isolate the lane. I want to make sure that I wait for my Nocturne to be done with his clear. And that's when I'm going to opt in for a more aggressive wave state. In the meantime, I'm punishing this rise. I'm making this guy sweat. And guess what happens? Because of that, my Nocturne finds a nice little gank opportunity onto the rise. Because of the fact that we had him low, we managed to pressure him. And that led us to be in a position where we could actually kill him. So you see that there's this balance of when to push, when to not push. And it's all about what your jungle is doing and when the next play timer is. So you got to be actively aware of what the next neutral objective is when it's spawning and what your jungle is actively doing. And you as a mid laner want to sync yourself up with the tempo of the game. Now that can be quite challenging. I totally understand. But it's still the goal of what we want to have at this stage in the lane. Now, we're now going to flip the script a little bit. The previous game, we were versus pretty low threat. Yana, Kindred, it's not the worst thing. But if you're playing Victor versus a champ like Pyke, LeBlanc, Jarvan, you're fucked, basically. You cannot step up for shit in the game. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to adapt the way that we're going to be playing the waves. And in this case, I need to be hyper aware of when I can push and when I cannot push. Because if I push at wrong times, I will instantly drop creeps and instantly lose the lane. So knowing that my Lux is currently getting gapped 0-3 in base, I'm holding the wave to my side because Pyke always has a move timer on top of me. So I'm now also factoring in the side lanes right here, knowing that I'm under a lot of threat. So knowing that our bot lane is in this position where they're getting pushed in and the Grub is spawning in a few seconds, I know that this Pyke, who's 3-0 versus my 0-3 Lux, will always have first move on these Grubbies. And I preemptively recognize that these grubbies are going to be really, really challenging for us to play. This is also not really my identity as Victor. If I've got full vision, full lane control, fully safe, it's completely fine to play. But the moment Pyke shows up there, I know it's just a back off angle. So what I do is I say to my Xin Zhao, hey, I'm not playing here. It's suicide. Lux is not here. We are not playing. We take one grip, we get out. It is what it is. We're not playing. So initially, I do a bit of hovering because I see that my Lux is just dying again. You know, this guy he's not having a good one. But it's okay. I make sure that I don't get myself killed. I make sure that I stay strong, I stay healthy, and I can access my means afterwards. So this is the game plan. And what we're going to happen is we're going to just need to stall out the game like this because we're under a lot of threat. We can't really contest. We need to stall out the game, get towards our spikes, and eventually try to create positions where we can force man advantages. That's what you do when you're in a position like this. So I reset and I do not buy a controller. So let's break down control ward usage at this point in the game, because it can be a make or break of your later part of the lane and allowing you to snowball. If you are ahead, okay? If you're ahead, buying control wards is super OP because you can place it in one of these side lane bushes and you can basically deny enemy vision and block them off. And what you can do is you can permanently shove the waves and then hover into the vision if you would want to, putting a lot of pressure onto the map towards the side of which you want to be playing. You can combine that control ward with deeper vision to basically have a permanent side where you cannot die on, where you're perfectly safe. And that's a really strong warding combination, allowing you to translate your lead. You don't buy control wards when you're behind, because you want to hit your item spikes as soon as possible, and because of the fact that the enemies can easily contest them and break them. So don't buy control wards whenever you're behind. Now, we see that LeBlanc is now forced to reset, and we're now going to be in a position where I'm going to be assessing the enemy threat. I still got flash. I'm going to be assessing the enemy threat. Whenever I can push, I will push. If I can't push, I won't push. Knowing that LeBlanc has to reset, I'm confident getting the push here onto these minions before LeBlanc gets back. So I push the wave, I get myself a nice ward, and I keep the next wave neutral because I don't want to end up in a wave where she holds the wave on her side. That's like worst case scenario. If she ever holds the wave on her side, I'm screwed. Because then with the threat of the Pyke and the Jarvan, I'm going to be in a position where I might just get myself killed by a gank. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at my teammates' locations, I'm looking at the vision on the map. I'm not comfortable pushing up right now. Matter of fact, I don't need to push up for anything because nothing's happening. So right here, we got Xin Zhao hovering. Of course, into LeBlanc, that's a futile effort. But we do zone her off some creeps. And we're just very slowly getting a little bit of leads here in the lane. Now, we spot the Jarvan on top right now. And bot lane actually gets a double kill. Lux pulled it back. It was like, let's win this game. So my mindset right now, okay, Jarvan's top, LeBlanc's probably base. I'm going to nuke this wave and I can potentially take myself a plate because I know that I forced LeBlanc to base and Jarvan just showed topside. So I'm now leaning to bot. Leaning is a really powerful tool in the lane, which is going to allow you to stay safe while still pressuring up. And knowing that the Jarvan just ganked top, I'm going to be feeling pretty confident for me to just nuke this wave. Also because the enemy Pyke was dead. And now he's coming back up on the map. So I'm going to retreat. I'm going to be careful, recognizing that I'm now under danger. And guess what? Pyke shows up. Look at my teammates' locations. They're all on downtime. So I'm matching their tempo. I'm dancing with my team. Uptime, I'm on uptime. Downtime, I'm on downtime. Not exposing myself. And this is just the reality of playing mid lane, guys. We are victims of support roams and jungles. We are the center of the map. Everyone loves to kill us. Matter of fact, mid lane is really strong of getting control of it because of that exact reason. Now, normally, I would take the reset here. Normally, in the sense of if I had enough money. I would take the reset here, and I would then perfectly have my time synced up with my team. Because of the fact that we would then all come up this map at the same time, just as strong, ready to potentially fight or play. But in this case, we recognize that I'm 60 gold off my spike, so I want to stay a little bit longer here in the lane. So I decide to nuke this wave and now only reset on my spike. Still, it's completely fine, because we don't necessarily want to contest this dragon anyway. The dragon is pretty hard to contest if we don't have vision. If we can get control, we will do it. But if we can't get control, we won't brute force it. But now, LeBlanc reset after me. So what I can do is I can potentially get myself a little bit of vision. Because I'm so much stronger than LeBlanc, because I actually did a really good job taking trades, I'm now getting myself a control ward and I'm hovering towards the Xin Zhao here. I'm moving together with him, seeing that the potential play is happening. get a little bit of vision, and afterwards, because we're actually a little bit stronger right now, and we have mid and bot in a good state, we actually start the dragon. So from this really awkward spot, because of the fact how we sync up our wave timers properly with our team, we're now in a position where we can be safe and we can get control at certain points in the game, where we create temporary man advantages in which that we're stronger, in which that we can actually get something done. Now, there is one crucial mistake that I make, and that's right here in this position. It's where I slightly disrespect the Jarvan. And you see how fast it goes, right? In this position, I step up to the LeBlanc, I try to do a little bit too much, I get myself chained, and this chain plus Jarvan gank actually gets me killed. Now, the vision was fine. I think it was fine for me to do that. I also had the Xin Zhao in the area. But the thing that I didn't properly assess was the fact that Xin Zhao was now going towards the Raptors to actually farm. He's not covering me. If he's covering me, I'm completely fine here. And that led me to be in a position where I actually die to the Jarvan, unfortunately. So I get a little bit cocky, I die, and this was my threat assessment just slipping up slightly. So it's really hard to get to a perfect level all the time, and that's not something that I expect. So just take this at face value. You got some tools to understand how to translate your lead, either through the lane itself or towards the rest of the map, understanding that you want to play with your jungle around these neutral objectives. These are constantly the driving forces of where the plays on the map happen. Neutral objectives and your jungle, I'm going to be very honest guys, they're OP. So we're entering step 3, mid-game. And for a lot of players, mid-game is just maze where there's just no ending. And I understand, because mid-game is so complicated with the amount of decisions that you can make. But this is also where the gold is at. If you are able to master the mid-game better than your opponents, I can guarantee you this is where you get the most bang for your buck. You will be able to climb the fastest by fixing up your mid-game. Because the truth is, no one truly understands how mid-game works in these ranks. So if you can differentiate yourself, or at least have a bit of direction, you're going to expose so many mistakes from the enemies, and no game is ever lost even from behind, because no one actually knows how to win the game. So what I'm going to discuss in this step is mid-game 20%ers. The most important things to know about the mid-game, and I'm going to give you guys a bit of a, easy to apply formula to give you guys some guidance of what to think and what to do in the mid-game. Put yourself in a position where you're not ruining the game and can expose the enemy's mistakes. So, generally speaking, the first thing we have to understand is that mid-game revolves all around neutral objectives. Mid-game is neutral objectives. And the way that we play around those decides where we're going to be on the map, decides what we're going to be doing. And you want to view neutral objectives like deadlines as a school project. You need to have something turned in at that point of the time. And my thought process in the mid game is exactly like this. You guys can just copy it if you want. First of all, every single time that I've got in a big lull state, and a big lull state is a moment in the game where there is some time to think. A really good example of a lull state is when I'm coming from base. This is exactly my thought process. What is the next objective? What's the next objective? Great. Then, can we fight? Yes or no? The next objective, in this case, dragon. Can we fight? Are we strong enough to fight? Yes. If the answer to that question is no, you want to be very careful of that because you don't want to fight. A lot of people can't fight and they still fight and then they ruin the game. So this is a very simple questionnaire, right? What's the next objective? Can we fight? Yes. Okay, great. Then we want to deploy towards that side of the map and we want to play for it. No, what we want to do is we want to then go towards the other side of the map and we want to try to get control there, get farm, take enemy jungle camps, push the waves deep, force the enemy to respond there. Maybe we can even trade for turrets. That's the power of also knowing what the next objective is from behind, because you can preemptively set yourself up to get something back when the enemies are getting the neutral objective. Usually that's gold, allowing you to hit your item spikes, getting back into the game. Now there's a final question I ask myself, and that is, what is the location of the waves? Because this is really dependent on the deployments, right? Where are we going to go? Are we going to go through mid? Are we going to bot? Or are we going to go to top? And all options are viable, and it really depends on the exact timer of the dragon. Most of the time, if you're ahead as a mid laner, you want to be on the strong side of the map. you want to be playing where the objective's at. So you want to be playing mid and bot. Now, in this case, if I have two options, mid and bot, I need to decide if I need to go through mid or the bot. And this decides on two factors. The timer of the objective. The shorter the time, the more often you want to get through mid. Because the neutral objectives, in an ideal world, you push out the mid lane wave, the final mid lane wave before the neutral objective, and then move into the objective itself. Then the other thing is the location of the waves, right? If this wave on bot lane is all the way under my turret, and there's this massive wave stacking up, I'm going to catch that one first before moving to mid. But since this wave is currently, we call this a Narnia, right? We are not going to go through bot. It takes too much time to go from here, and then set up for the dragon. So these are the three questions I ask myself, allowing me to know where to play, what to do, and set up the nice objective. And that's it. That's how I structure my game. But the reality is, if you do that consistently, that's how you will eventually find results. And a lot of people struggle with this consistency. And most of the people even don't ask themselves that first question, what's the next objective? They run around like headless chickens in the mid game, and they don't know where to be. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to control the area of the objective. We call this space control. If I'm early in the objective, we can create an advantageous position. Creating advantageous fights is really, really good whenever you're ahead, because it heightens your win chances. That's just the way that I want to view it as well. It's like you want to take the highest percentage play that's going to work out. Compare it to poker. Whenever you play pocket aces, you're always gambling because of the fact that the chances are so good for you. This is exactly what I'm doing. I'm creating the best possible chances for myself by being early in the area, controlling the space, making it hard for the enemies to enter. That's the power of using these neutral objectives. Now, we're going to get ahead. We're going to go back to the deployments, okay? Because in this example, what we find is that the Herald is up right now. So we see that the Herald's up right now. We see that bot lane wave is neutral, mid lane wave is pushed in. This is such an interesting position, by the way. A lot of people struggle with this one. And I'm going to walk you guys through the correct mindset of approaching these situations. What's the next objective? Herald. Can we fight? Yes, we're ahead right here. Great. What's the location of the side waves? Well, neutral. Slow pushing into the enemies even. That's awkward, actually, because we kind of want to fix that wave, but we kind of also want to fight that Herald. So now we got two options. And one option is actually, am I actually going to go to Herald instantly and then TP bot or fix the wave state later? Or are we going to go bot and then use our TP to get towards the Herald if a play is breaking out? And that both answers can be correct. The interesting thing is that it just really depends on how you execute upon it. And also on some other factors in the game when it comes to engage and stuff like that. But what I recognize in this case is, look, in the ideal world, I go to bot, but I see that my team is playing right now. So if my team's playing right now, I'm moving right now. And I know that I can always TP later towards side. So I'm comfortable moving because I see that the likelihood of a play happening right here is really, really high. And what I do is I open up through mid to keep my options open. If none of the enemies are contesting and the Rift health is dropping, I will instantly go bot and I'll be just fine. And I don't even walk that extra mile. It's just a little bit. So that's why I open up through mid. I keep my options open. But now, because of the vision that we have, we see aggressive posturing from the enemies. So I can instantly change up my position, change up my space here in the mid game, allowing me to instantly adapt to a potential fight happening. And this deployment through mid fixes everything. And you see that this just makes a really sexy instant game winning moment right here. Because of the fact that I'm at the right place, at the right time, and a neutral objective. And I read the map better than Zoe, allowing me to instantly win the game on the spot. Matter of fact, the enemies even FF from this point because of the fact that they just, they just lost it from that point. So really sexy deployment. Now, another big thing in the mid game is that we want to create these high percentage plays, right? We're going to go back to the poker analogy. We want to get ourselves in a position where we cheat ourselves pocket aces. So one of the key things that I'm playing with in these games is the man advantage mindset. If I can create a 5 versus 4, 3 versus 2 play, I will take it because those are so easy to win. I don't even have to execute perfectly in my micro if I just get them in a man advantage position. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. We're creating the position where we can get the dragon. Plays over, Garen's not here. Garen's not here, I want to get the fuck out. No playing anymore. We're in a man disadvantage right now. Also Tristana's dead, so there's no play. What I'm doing, I'm now TPing top. And this is a really unique case of teleport. Because it's a really high tempo TP. What's going to happen is because I use this TP, I now force someone to respond, otherwise they're going to lose top tower. And what happens when I go for a TP like this? Aurora is now responding, which leads to me being able to create a man advantage on mid. Man advantage mindset, guys. So what happens is that I now brute force a play on mid. I say go, 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 because I know that I can use this man advantage that I created on top side to now create an even more favorable fight, leading to this position being really, really good and allowing us to eventually take a few kills on this very nice fight. Now, the fight execution could be a little bit better, but overall, we get ourselves a triple kill. This was absolutely amazing. Another key thing to keep in mind is, what is your team actually doing? Look at the exact same point as in the late lane, right? Is look at what your team's doing, where they are exactly on the map. We call this team tempo. So, in this case, next objective is going to be the Atacam. And what I'm doing right now is I'm recognizing, hey, my team's all in base. I kind of need to be careful here. I need to be a little bit chill. I can't be pushing too far up right now, walking in with the wave, because I might just get myself killed. So I scan for vision first. I sit in the fog of war, and I wait until I've got a little bit more information. So I just purely clear the wave. Great. So Giovanni shows into bot right now. That means I'm going to be pretty safe. I've now more information, which is going to allow me to push deeper. This is a bit of map state calibration. That's what we call assessing where is everybody. Are we under threat? Yes or no? And in this case, we're now in a position where we can do a bit of trading, because I know that the Giovanni is not here, and we get ourselves a nice play in where we get an Aurora kill. Now, Arthur is still here to defend the turret. That's great. And but I recognize that there's no play currently up on the map. I've got my item spike, so we just reset. There's nothing happening right now. Yes, my team is in a bit of more offensive uptime position, but I'm just going to make sure to ping them back. Now, the next objective is Atacam, and look what I'm doing. I'm coming from base. What's next? Atacam. All right, I want to control the area of the next objective. A lot of people think, objective's out still in a minute. I've got heaps of time. It doesn't matter. Heaps of time. Dude, I can watch TikTok in that time, you know? No, we don't do that. What we want to do is we want to take control of the top side of the jungle. The fight's won before it starts. That's the mindset that I want you guys to have. So what my mindset here in this position is that I want to get control of the top side of the map. I want to get vision right here. The more vision I get there, the better it's going to be, because the easier the Atacam fight is going to be playing out. So you see that I'm setting up the vision control, and I'm asking my rel to place vision. My rel wants to place vision on bot side. I don't know what she was doing there. So I message her, like I ping her, get vision control on top side. I set myself up some vision, and we're setting up for a great spot here onto the Atacam. Now, we're still playing with the mindset, I want the enemies to respond to me. So I don't want a fight to happen right now. It makes no sense to fight right here, in my opinion. Because the Atacam is spawning in 30 seconds. We have full vision control. We can let them control this vision and get good flanks onto them. So my mindset is just, hey, I just want to take the T2 turret on top. And what happens is that my Garen does some dumb shit, right? That shit will happen. My Garen does some completely in shit. That's okay. Stuff like that will happen. And the truth is that in those cases, you just want to let your team die. This is what a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people would just not take this tier 2. They would move mid and would be like, yeah, I saw my team fighting, so I want to go there. Yeah, the fight was already over. We couldn't have changed anything right there. So if you know what you make the right play, right, just commit to it. And don't be shy to just let your team die every once in a while. Because the biggest problems in the real times when the games are actually lost is when you don't let your team die. You move there, you die yourself as well. And that's when you start freaking out, because you know you fucked up and you're going to get tilted and the game just spirals. So we lose the Atacam. And now we're from base again. What do? We ask ourselves the question, what's the next objective again? So in this case, knowing what the next objective is, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to make sure that we get the waves in a good position for this dragon. So we push our bot lane wave. We shift to mid. Shifting to mid is a really important thing. I want to get prio on the mid lane wave, the final mid lane wave before the dragon started. That's going to create us a man advantage on the dragon itself. Once again, this man advantage mindset is really, really OP. So getting the push on this mid lane wave is super good. So you see how I'm moving in, trying to get the mid wave prio. And the more you can keep this mid wave prio up, this is a very important thing in your game, guys. The more you can keep it up, the more options from the enemies you deny. Now the Aatrox shows top, so we just brute force a fight right here. Absolutely fantastic position, man advantage play, and we eventually get ourselves the nice little position around the dragon in which we can get it. Now, I want you to showcase a very quick tidbit or moment from my games in which that I highlight the actual importance of mid-wave prio. And this is something that I've seen in so many reviews in my coaching program that people just don't do. They just drop mid-waves, they get pushed in, they're on the back foot, they lose vision. In this case, me and Vayne kind of just takes over my lane, you know? Fine. I'm now doing her job in a way. And this is what you'll find a lot, is where the AD carry just doesn't give a fuck about mid wave, because the truth is AD carry players have no macro. They don't know what to do. So in this case, yes, it's true. AD carry players have no macro, guys. So what happens in this case? Vayne takes over my wave, it's fine. In this case, I'll just take over the mid lane wave control. So my job here is to constantly keep the mid lane wave pushed in as deep as possible, contest space in the lane, make it hard for the enemies to get vision, get control by taking the mid wave up deep. We see that the play is happening on bot right now, and what I'm moving is I'm trying to put my body in the area. Maybe we can find a play. I see a little bit of action. They got vision on me. Leona engages, but it's not smart to play there. Why? Next mid lane wave is already coming in. It's too deep. So I'm pinging this play off. I don't give a fuck what my Leona is doing right now. I'm going back to mid lane wave. I'm constantly aware of these neutral objectives when they're spawning. I know that if I can keep the mid lane wave up all the time, I can prevent the enemies from getting vision, keep up the control for the objective, and be in a really strong position for these fights. And this works on any champion, guys. This works on any champion. And that's like the power of having the control of the mid lane wave. Now, the final big mid game 20% that I want to talk about is using the ACE framework. And this is a bit of a situation that we preemptively already spotted, right? And I want to start this sequence off with understanding what my thought process is here. In this position, right, we see that I'm playing Echo. And the enemies have Way, and they got double tank. The rest of us have full AD. The enemy's team finding is just stronger. They got double front line, which is really good for us, my team. They got Way, control mage versus me as Echo, side laner. And that means that team fighting is really hard for us. My mindset here is we need to create a man advantage, otherwise we can't win fights. So I'm going to be in the side lane, specifically on the opposite side of the neutral objective. So you can be on the opposite side as a bit more of an assassin. And what I do is I try to push the wave in, force someone to respond, then create a man advantage in play. So the only thing that we got to potentially be careful of is a Malphite engage on mid. So what I do is I ping my team, hey boys, I don't want you guys to get engaged up on mid. I will push bot and then we're going to be fine. So all we need to do here, right, is not die on mid and then we're fine. And I know I need to push bot because we can't win from the back team fights. Guess what happens? My team dies. And there's going to be a lot of situations like this where shit like this just happens. And it may feel out of your control, but it's actually really good to review. And for that, we use the ACE framework. The ACE framework is a framework in which we can utilize to get a bit of a grasp on these situations. A stands for acknowledging the best play, in the sense that, do we have clear intention of what we want to do in this game? In this case, that's the case because I need the sideline, otherwise we'll lose. So yes, check. Did I communicate that to my team? Yes, I want them to back off. Check. Great. So already I'm in a really good spot. Now E stands for embracing reality. Sometimes you gotta change up your approach if something happens in the game that you don't expect, or your team doesn't listen to your pings or whatever. Especially post 25 minutes, that's very important to do because Baron is up and it might instantly warp a game. Now, in this case, a different option would be, instead of keep split pushing bot, I could also shift to mid and help my team with getting prio on the mid lane wave. That would have been a potential E. The way that I can go about it is now review, hey, listen, was that a smart play? Should I have embraced reality? Should I have understood that Malphite could engage? Yes or no? And I think in this case, yes, I could have potentially moved mid and helped my team, but I still think that wouldn't have been the best play. I think it would have still been the best play if my team just respects and doesn't get prio, and just doesn't contest prio here, because we have vision on the Baron enough. And their Baron isn't super fast. And I've got TP, so we're not in a position where we need to contest the next mid lane wave. So therefore, I think still my position is great, and I like what I'm doing. But a lot of players beat themselves up over this situation, like, I fucked up, or, you know, or my team died, there's nothing I could do, right? In this situation, correct, right? There is nothing much that you can do, but at least you made the right play. Compared to the poker analogy, right? If you just make the right play enough times over a longer period of time, you will start winning. If you just keep betting with double aces, the chances of you winning is just the highest. And that's why poker players take it. They have this metric in their head all the time, and that's the mindset that you want to have with League as well. Now, we're going to be combining all of this theory into a practical example of a mid game. And the first thing that we need to do is understand what our champion does, because our champion always has an identity. And every champion likes to play at the mid game differently. If you're playing Yoniar as Akari, you're going to play the side lane and split. While if you're playing Victor, you want to be creating front-to-back team fights in which that you can have your heavy AoE deal a lot of damage to the enemy team. So, in this case, we see that we are playing Victor into LeBlanc, Pyke, Jarvan. The enemies have a lot of assassins, single target kill threat, while we as Victor are really good at front-to-back team fighting. So this is going to be my red line throughout the game. I want to create situations in which I'm going to be early on objectives where I can create front-to-back team fights. And it's really important to be early, because if I'm early, it's easy for me to get my damage off. I'm a control mage. Controlling space, controlling choke points is what my champion does. So I'm going to be hyper aware on every single neutral objective, and I'm going to decide if I'm going to contest it or not. And this is going to decide based upon how high percentage that the play is. If I feel like we can't contest or we can't win, I'm not fighting the objective. If I feel like we can contest and we can win, I will be setting up and fighting for the objective. In this case, we recognize that the Rift Herald is going to be spawning in a minute. Can we contest? Potentially. The game is, it's not an easy game. It's a pretty even game right here. And we can potentially contest the Rift if the situation is good. That means if we can be early. Now, how are you early on a neutral objective? Well, you do that by creating temporary man advantages. We talked about it in the previous sections, where you push out a wave and then you shift towards a different lane, and then someone responds and then you get prio somewhere. Or you push out mid, force them to respond, then you get vision. We call that prio, vision, and then you can constantly repeat that with prio, vision, prio, you got a PvP. So the way that we're going to go about it in this case is quite flexible. Initially, I'm like, okay, let's open up through mid. There's a nice mid lane wave to catch. But then I see that some stuff's happening. And what happens is that my bot lane actually dies 2v2. It's only going to get worse and worse, by the way. They died 2v2. They're not in that good of a position. So I'm now forced to defend bot. Otherwise, we're going to lose bot turret. Aphelios again going to take the turret. He's going to push out an extra wave. And then he's going to have perfect tempo for the Rift Herald after resetting, opening up. Big problem. So what I do is I TP to bot, and I recognize, okay, if I TP bot right now and I can get a pushing wave state, potentially if I make someone respond, we can play Rift. And someone's eventually forced to respond because these guys now need to reset, but I can stall their reset, allowing me to get potential first move on Rift. Now, if I don't get first move through whatever reason, by the way, there might be a reason where I don't get first move, or the enemies just don't answer me in bot. I'll just keep playing bot and I'll just keep hitting until someone responds. But my mindset right now, okay, I want to make someone respond. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And we have the Lux hovering. Xinjiao is asking Lux to play topside, which I understand because the Rift Herald's coming up and Lux is opening up through bot. It's interesting. But in this case, it's completely fine because I can get or like deny the enemy vision a little bit right here. And this is a really important thing that we just watched. We spotted the enemies, used the blasting or like the blue ward right there. So Xinjiao is onto the Rift, while my Lux is onto bot here. So this Rift might get a little bit funky, and it's good that Xinjiao actually stopped it because of the fact that we don't have information on anyone else on the map. What I did do is I made LeBlanc respond to bot, allowing me to now shift into mid, recognizing that we have a man advantage, and it can allow us to actually take on the Rift Herald. So purely because we have made the LeBlanc respond to bot, we actually have this Rift Herald easy for us to play. So I take over the mid lane wave, instantly push it out, preventing the enemies from getting a push on mid, preventing them from doing anything. And I instantly shift back to bot afterwards, knowing that I'm safe there because I see Jarvan go up into top, and after I help my team with getting that mid lane wave. Now what happens is that unfortunately, my teammates die again, but I recognize, hey, LeBlanc is on mid. So my job right here is to push out bot deep. If I can push bot deep, I can force someone to respond again. It makes no sense defending mid. I'm already on bot. It's too late. So I just want to trade right now. I recognize I'm too late. I want to be playing first in the fights. I'm playing on my tempo. I need the enemies to run into me. So I'm taking bot here. And I know I can do it because I've got the vision set up for it as well. So I nicely push out the bot lane waves deep, and eventually LeBlanc or someone else is going to be forced to respond to me. So I get myself this nice wave, and I think that LeBlanc is going to come right now. That's my guess, with her resetting and opening up the bot. There she is. So what I do is I don't overextend, and I use this time where Nishi is now responding to take a reset. Now, we're coming from base. What's the next objective? It's Dragon once again. So Dragon's coming up. Can we contest? Maybe yes, maybe no. We're going to play opportunistic around it. I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to push out my wave. I'm going to try to set up the area. If we can fight, great, we'll take it. If we can't fight because the enemies have the area or whatever, no problem, we're going to trade it. The most important thing to do is to be intentional around this neutral objective. So what I do is I just nicely push out the wave. I'm going to try to take a little bit of trades into the LeBlanc. In this case, I get a nice hover from Xin Zhao, which is going to allow me to get up the push. And getting the push is really good. Remember, guys, getting the push is going to allow us to be in a position where we force the enemies to respond, creating potential advantageous position. Now, it looks like Xin Zhao was forced to use his flash, but still the enemies need to respond to bot. And what I can do is, after I made them respond to bot, is I can recognize, okay, I want to maybe shift into mid, get up the mid prio, or we can potentially play an extra wave on bot, which is risky, but it is a possible thing to do. And what we recognize is that in this case, the Volibear is now moving. And this Volibear move signals to me that we are going to be fine playing this dragon, because we are sacrificing top for Volibear being here on bot. So this is going to give me the confidence to play on bot right here. And that means that we trade the top tier 2 for this dragon. And we are really happy to brute force a fight because Volibear is here. What would have happened if Volibear wasn't here? Well, then he would just be top. We would probably have to give the dragon. Maybe what I could do is push this wave, reset, open up top to try to get the top push in trade-off for the dragon. Anyways, great move by Volibear, but he will never get prio into Gnar again because Gnar gets too strong. So after the dragon, I TP, and I'm now just going to match the Gnar. And instantly, I'm going to ask myself the question, what's the next neutral objective? Well, in this case, it's now going to be the Atacam. There's a lot of objectives nowadays, guys, and they're very fucking strong. So we play for it. And what do I reckon is I just used my TP to top. So the worst thing that can happen is if I am actually on top lane without teleport. That's going to put me in a position of horror, because I'm going to be away from the neutral objective without TP. As a control match, I'm fucked. So I recognize I need to be early on the fight. I'm going to send my Volibear back to top lane because he's still got TP. I'm going to literally take over this lane because I need to be there early. And what happens is I can now push out bot and create a bit of a position that's favorable for us. So what we want to do right now is we want to wait for Volibear to pressure, because no one is currently forced to respond to Volibear. So we just wait. We try to create a man advantage position. Gnar is kind of doing the opposite thing of what Volibear just did. And Volibear is now pushing top, and eventually someone's forced to respond to top. Right? So this is going to put us in a position of control. They either start the Atacam, we get a good front-to-back team fight, where Volibear can't TP, or they're now going to need to respond to top, in which that we get a favorable position. Now Gnar TP stop. That is our sign of go time, because Gnar now has no TP and Volibear is moving. So we have a great shove and move action. So what I do is I move into mid, and we try to get the mid prio. We try to get the control here. And that's exactly what we get. We get a beautiful pick onto Aphelios, which is going to allow us to then push the next mid lane wave. It's very important that you push this mid lane wave when it comes in, because otherwise the enemies can just push it while you guys are on the Atacam. They can get mid turret, mid tier 2, with the Gnar shifting as well. It's a horror, you lose a lot. So this mid lane wave is very important. You got to keep that mid lane wave prio up. And because I see that my team is chasing them into the bot side jungle, I'm pretty comfortable taking the turret and then doing the Atacam here. And once again, you see that I am making it hard for the Jarvan to enter. I see Gnar stop. I know the threat is low. So I'm kind of fucking with this Jarvan. I'm making it really hard for him to enter this area, because I don't want him to potentially steal the Atacam. I'm doing area control, and I instantly keep control of the mid lane wave again. I don't want to drop mid prio unless it's absolutely necessary. So this was absolutely fantastic. And we lose an in-up for that. That's fine. It's fine trading, guys. You're not going to get everything unless you're super far ahead. Trading is inevitable. Be okay with trading. From this point, we're now going to do the exact same sequence. What is the next objective? And we're going to set up for it. Now we lose mid tower, unfortunately. The lane assignments are a little bit screwed up, so we're going to try to get back into a position where we can contest it again. Now, Dragon's going to be spawning, so what I'm going to try to do is I ping it in the chat, make sure that my team is aware. You see how I'm communicating all the time what I want to play for. So not only I, but also my team is aware of the play that we're going to be making. This is going to put me in a position right here where I'm trying to get mid prio all the time, which is going to allow us to be first in the area. So you see how I'm sitting in this control ward here, controlling the area, making it hard for the enemies to enter. And I'm not giving the space for free. I'm contesting it if I can. The tough thing is that Jin didn't take mid prio for some reason. Look, this is what I mean with AD carry Mako. That it doesn't contest mid prio here. And that's just, he goes for that buff. So I have to fucking fix his stuff right now and get the mid wave. Eventually we do get it. We do have the area in a great position. And we now keep the control of the choke. And this is going to allow me to land a beautiful E, doing so much damage and basically already winning the fight before it even starts. That E and that control of the choke point just won the fight before it even started. Genius. Genius holding of the space and making it hard for the enemies to enter. This is what control mages excel at. So a bit of a fight happens out. We have the Volibear TPing in. And we love these front-to-back team fights, especially in the 5 versus 4 situation. I'm comfortable stepping up, and I even want this Gnar to engage onto me because I can then bait him. Because I still got flash, you know, I'm fully chilling. I bait out the Jarvan engage. We got a nice amount of picks. Eventually we kill the Jarvan as well. And now we're just suddenly in a very controlling position. We get the Dragon, and instantly what you do after you get an objective or after a play is done, you're going to look to reset together with your team. But before you reset with the team, fix the waves first. Fix waves. I push the wave as deep as possible. Then I reset. And what we recognize is that the next objective is Baron. So Baron is up on top side. That means that I want to put myself around the area on top side. I'm going to open up through mid and try to get top side vision control. Prio, vision, prio. That's what I'm doing. Push mid lane wave in. Move in with broader looks, support. Try to get some deep vision, allowing us to constantly get deeper push on mid, deeper vision, and control the space better, like I did before in the previous example. Now, this is a beautiful position here, in which that we're just contesting mid wave, and I got Zonias. So once again, I'm happy if they engage onto me. I want them to engage onto me right now, because I can bait it out. And you see that Jarvan sends it, Gnar sends it, I lay down the R, the E, the W, everything. They get baited into an engage through my Zonias. Beautiful fight, eventually leading us to get the Baron, and we're in an amazing position. And you see how we're just turning these beautiful fundamentals into a fantastic position on the game. Now next is going to be the Dragon. So we're going to take mid control, bot control, set up deep vision for the Dragon, and eventually we're going to do the exact same thing where we have full mid prio, set up area control, make it hard for the enemies to enter, and we're just playing slow macro League of Legends. It's slow, it's sexy, it's consistent, it wins games, and it's all of these fundamentals combined. But to really recap, right, I really want to recap the mid game. Because mid game, once again, like as I discussed, it's this big beast. It's this maze where you just can't find a way through. The most important thing to do is to assess what's the next neutral objective. Can we fight? Yes, we go towards that area. No, we don't go towards that area. We give, we trade. That's okay. That's key mid-game fundamental 1. The second is the man advantage mindset. Force the enemies to respond to your waves, then create favorable positions. Force them to respond, then get vision. Force them to respond, then shift into a different lane. Force them to respond as well. These are the key fundamentals of mid-game. And the third thing is deployments. You got to understand where to go. Depending on the question, what's the location of the wave, but also depending on what the next neutral objective is and when it exactly happens. These are what's going to allow you to consistently perform in the mid game. It's challenging, I understand, but it's very rewarding once you get the hang of it. Most players simply don't climb because their champion pool is just too complicated. And I see this time and time again with new players joining my coaching program, where their champion pool is too large, they have weird champs mixed up together, which leads to massive issues and a complete stagnation of improvement. So what we're going to discuss in this 4th step here is how to build your perfect champion pool that is then allowing you to focus on the game fundamentals and create the environment for improvement. So we're gonna use the champion pool trifecta to explain how to build your champion pool. Generally speaking, a few key fundamentals about champion pool management is what we have to understand. And by the way, I've helped build hundreds, if not thousands, of champions pools over the past year and a half in my coaching program alone. So I've seen some shit. Now, generally speaking, a champion pool, it likes to have a little bit of balance, but it also doesn't like to be too big. Generally speaking, the less champs, the better. My golden rule would be if you aim for about 2 to 3 champions, that is like the optimum for climbing. Of course, if you want to climb as fast as possible, just one trick pony is the best. But if you want to become a holistic player that understands the game, 2 to 3 champs is best. I'm a really big fan of 2 champs. Some players can't help it and have to play 3. It's fine, it's doable. That's the first thing, 2 to 3 champs. Then we need to pick, because we have styles of champs. We got mages, we got skirmish-oriented mages, and we got assassins right here. These are all styles of champions. And some go well together, while others don't. Some people like to go for a full mage pool, 3 mage champs. I'd say, great, go ahead. But when are you going to pick which champ? It doesn't really work out like that. So my recommendation for everyone is to pick 2 types of categories. Pick an M and S, or an A and an S, but don't pick A and M. And let me explain you why that's the case. The S is this nice middle ground. It's a skirmish-oriented mage or skirmish-oriented champion, which has some side laning potential and some side laning reference points, which assassins also have. But it also got mage-oriented reference points. So what's going to happen if you pick a mage and an assassin in the pool? You're going to actually put yourself in a position where you're going to overcomplicate all of the reference points. You don't know what to do in which game, and you're going to be in a horrible position. I tried to have all 3 in the pool at the same time. I tried to run Syndra, Aurora, and Akali. I couldn't do it. It was too hard. I had to cut out Akali and then move into Syndra, Aurora alone to make my climb to Challenger earlier this year. So pick 2 to 3 champs and ideally pick out from 2 styles of champions. In my #1 recommendation, the easiest to climb to master is definitely going to be the mage plus skirmish oriented mage as a combination to climb. So a really good example would be Syndra Galio, Syndra Aurora, Orianna Ahri, Thalia Victor. These are perfect examples. But if you really want to, you can also run Ahri with Zed, or you can Yone Ahri. These are acceptable combinations. Other good example of skirmish-oriented mages are, for example, Galio. And the main way that the skirmish-oriented mages play out is how they actually play out the side lane most of the time. Are they actually shove and moving, or are they hardcore front-to-back mages that need to be early on the play and let the enemies run into them? The skirmish-oriented mages usually have a little bit more freedom. The problem with the assassin category is that the reference points of them is just really complicated. They are all over the place. They're hard to consistently keep in mind. Decision making is really opportunistic, and improving on these champs is just generally harder than on the other champions. That's why I would recommend these 2. But if you're an assassin lover, you can actually do that. But make sure you keep your pool small. Complexity also matters. Assassin champs are really hard. I recommend if you go a champ from this direction, that you stick to 2 champs max in your pool. The 5th step may just be the most important one, because if our mentality is not correct, we're going to struggle to make progress anyway. So I've had a lot of mentality videos on my channel already, but I'm just going to highlight the most important things to do to put yourself in a position where you can actually make progress and climb. First of all, you gotta focus on the input, not the output. A lot of players struggle with focusing on wins and losses. And if they lose a game, they get themselves further away from their goals, leading them to be in a really bad mental state, tilting, flaming their teammates. I understand. Been there, done that. Now, I used to really struggle with this myself as well. And the way that I overcame this was by focusing on learning goals. Specifically, I had a coach help me back in the days when I was in a position of just total despair. I lost 3 games in a row. Final game was a horror 45-minute slugfest, which we lost. And that led to us being in positions where I would lose my mind and flame my teammate really hard. And I would vent to him and I would scream and shout and call out some nonsense. I was on the verge of crying. But he said, this was a really good game because you just did something that I've never seen you do before. Referring to an in-game thing that I was trying to practice. And that was the first step of me starting to understand that it's not about the output, because you can't always control the output. You can't control if you're going to win or lose in every single game, because sometimes your team is just not that good. That's just the reality. Sometimes you're going to get carried, sometimes you're not going to get carried. And what we can focus on is how we perform ourselves, and especially what we learn from each game. So I want you to specifically put your focus on the learning objectives that you're going to try to set for yourself. What are the key parts of the game that you're struggling with? What can you improve? How does it supposed to be look like? And that's the thing that you got to focus on. Now, another thing that I see a lot of people struggle with is that they're scared of making mistakes. And that's a really rough thing, because if you're playing scared to make mistakes, if you're not playing courageously, what's going to happen is that you're then going to be in a position where you're not learning much. Because if you're not doing much, if you're not proactive, if you're not making the mistakes, you're not learning from them. So go into the game with the mindset of, I'm going to fuck up in this game. Great. Because if we fuck up, and if we actively fuck up, we are going to learn from our fuck ups. Now, another thing is that some people get impatient. Some people think that climbing in League is linear. This is just how it goes. That's not how it goes. Climbing in League is everything but linear. You will go up, down, go to the depths of despair, you go up again, you go even further down until you eventually stabilize and you go up and you actually climb. The reason why that's the case is because of the fact that if you're learning something or focusing on something, your mental energy is going to be fully occupied with that specific thing. But that means that overall the level of your play then drops. So a lot of players struggle to get through these hurdles, and they think it's the end of the world, that they're hard stuck, they'll never get out of these ranks. It will always go up and down, boys. You will potentially only see results after a few weeks of playing and implementing one specific learning objective, or mainly only after doing 3. Climbing League is not linear. Most of the time, the way that I want you to view it is like a river that's blocked, or like a dam. And what happens in the dam is that you need to improve 3 parts of your gameplay before the dam breaks and all the water keeps flowing through. And then you'll just shoot up 400 LP and climb to the next rank. Now, the final thing I want to talk about when it comes to the mentality is I want you guys to call and make every single play. Because if you're making the plays, you're learning from them. Once again, be happy with making mistakes. A lot of people don't communicate enough towards their team. A lot of people go with the decisions that their team make. That's a really bad thing to do, because you don't learn from your mistakes. You're following someone, and what happens is most of the time they're wrong too. And then you're going to put your eggs in someone else's basket. And you don't want to do that. You want to make your own decisions so you can learn from them. And that means that if you win the game, you won it, you can be proud of yourself. If you lost the game, you fucked up, you learn from it. As promised, I'm also going to give you guys reviewing techniques that you can use to start improving yourself. Now, reviewing is widely misunderstood because of the fact that people overcomplicate it. People think they have to analyze a specific play for 50 minutes straight. That's not how reviewing works. Reviewing is all about starting to recognize patterns and starting to visualize new ways of finding solutions. That's all what reviewing is about. And that doesn't need to take a lot of time. I recommend only reviewing for 5 minutes max, because if you're going to review more, it's easy to get overcomplicated situations, and it's much better to just get a new game in, practice that thing out that you tried to improve, and then have a new way of visualizing it again. Rinse and repeat, repetition, review, and you start the feedback loop like that. Now, reviewing is also, a lot of people make review way harder than it actually is. But it's all you're really doing is you're asking yourself the right questions. And a lot of people struggle with coming up with this and struggle with starting with this. The first thing that you have to do is that when you're going to review one thing. You want to keep it very simple. So one of my favorite quotes I heard it from like an art teacher is KISS. Keep it simple and stupid. Okay? That's what you have to do. Keep it fucking simple and stupid. The simpler the better, guys. So the way that I want you to view reviewing is like, you got to find out what you need to work on. And that can be anything. Maybe you struggle mid-game. Maybe you struggle in lane. Maybe you struggle in translating leads and snowballing. The most important thing for you to do is pinpoint what a weak point of your gameplay is, and focus all in on learning and improving that point. Doesn't matter what the rest is. The rest will come later, one by one. Just keep it simple. So what you want to do is you want to get a little bit of an analysis and figure out throughout the steps that For the steps that I provided earlier in this video, step 1, 2, and 3, which is about stages in the game, where you're struggling the most. And if you can pinpoint which stage and which step you're struggling into, this is what's going to help you, because these are ways to approach it. Now, step 1. It's about laning. And the question you got to ask yourself is, are we coming out of lane strong enough? Specifically, usually towards our wave clear breakpoint, usually around level 7. And you'll know when you're coming out of strong lane enough, because you'll feel it. You know if you're getting annihilated or not. And the way that you want to go about this, if you get through the lane strong enough, great, keep it at that. That's probably not your main issue. You move on to step 2 or 3 and see if it's there. Now, if this is your main issue, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself the question, if we're not coming out of lane strong enough, why is that the case? Okay, figure out what is the reason why you got gapped, or why you were in a position of where you're struggling. Did you take bad trades? Great, if you take bad trades, go towards the trades that felt bad, go 10 seconds back and figure out why you took that bad trade and what it is you could have changed, and what was the thing that you don't understand. And just really focus on one thing, and then just try to solve the puzzle with one piece at a time. Fix one thing at a time. Don't do everything at once. I'm going to keep repeating this 100 more times, because people tend to overcomplicate things. Now, another thing that can happen is your reset. Maybe you're in lane and you're like, the enemy took a reset, I'm in reset, and I feel like I'm losing pressure of the lane. I feel like I'm losing farm. I can't access the minions because I'm low on resources. Great, maybe you missed the reset. Maybe you didn't push out the wave properly before the reset. Maybe you lost a few minions and didn't quite understand why. Go and figure it out. A wave state is maybe you get pressured in a matchup. You trade all right, you reset all right, you didn't get ganked, but you lose. And you may wonder, well, how does that happen? Well, maybe we didn't play the wave states well. For example, versus a champion like a mage v mage matchup. What you want to do is you want to try to get the slow push, you want to try to get the control, because otherwise you're going to get blasted under the turret eventually when you're responding to the minions. Well, one of the key things that I see in my coaching session is that if someone feels awkward in a lane and they get destroyed, but it's not really that they don't understand the trading patterns, but they just get destroyed, it's usually that the wave state's not really in good position. And of course, gank timers, final thing. That's a thing that can completely kill and nuke your lane and set you really far behind. Ganks, there's many ways to look at it. You want to specifically look at your first ward. I talk about it in step 1. Is your first ward properly placed? That should help you throughout 80% of the lane. But if not, you can always review your first ward, see where you missed it, and also look at your leaning. Are you actually leaning towards that ward? Because sometimes you place the ward and then you randomly drift off to La La Land and you're on the other side of the lane. Now, step 2. If your opponent has first move, right? Because we're talking snowballing leads and lane control. And step 2 is quite interesting because there's 2 parts of it. I'm going to also discuss it on the second slide here. But the way you want to go about it is if your opponent ever has first move at this point in the game, there's a problem. Because first move is basically our job as a mid laner, lane control. I talked about it hundreds of times. If our opponent has first move, we messed up somewhere. How did he get the first move? You got to figure out. And what we could have done to prevent it. Maybe we, once again, maybe we took bad trades, right? Maybe we just lost half our HP for LeBlanc. And what happened is that we couldn't contest the wave anymore. There was a play happening on the Grubbies. She moves, we don't, we lose the game. Can happen. Another key thing that I see a lot of people struggle with is playing bodyguard. What do I mean? Or like goalkeeper is another way to look at it. You have the mid lane right here. And on the mid lane is these side lane bushes. We're going to just draw them right here. This is the side lane bushes. This way you can walk through. And what happens quite often is that when people are laning and they're in control, they're actually winning. And there's a skirmish happening on Dragon, for example, right here. But they have 3 more minions that they need to clear. The enemy mid laner just drops the minions, walks towards the play. They get the minions, but they get late to the play and they lose the play because the enemy laner actually is there first. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't understand, that they can play bodyguard and prevent the enemies from entering. And the way that we do that is for stronger and for lane control. We do that by moving down in the lane and just preventing the enemies from entering. Because if we're stronger, we can literally do that. But it's all about leaning properly and assessing when the play is happening and knowing that you want to prevent the enemy from moving first at all costs if you can. Another thing is the resets, right? If the enemy resets, they've got a better base like Lost Chapter and we're still sitting on components. Of course, we're going to lose lane control. Of course, they're going to get first move. You can trade however good as you want, but they're just going to be way stronger and it's a lot easier for them to get control. These are things to figure out. But there's always something that we can do. Even if we don't have lane control, even if we're behind, we can always communicate. So even if the enemy laner is going to get first move, maybe we could have just simply communicated and pinged the boys off. Like if you play versus Katarina, you can be in lane control and they might just drop complete wave states, you know? Most of the time versus Katarina, people don't understand what to do if they just sacrifice waves and go towards bot lane. Well, it's all about proper communication. If you recognize, hey, my bot lane is under the enemy turret, holy shit, they are squishy. I got myself a Yana Vayne, and the Kata is not inside, she's just dropping a wave. My bot lane is under the enemy turret, my top lane tank Malphite's under his turret, he's not gonna get ganked. We all know that. So preemptive communication onto bot lane is gonna be helping them. And a lot of people say, Tim, my team still doesn't respond. Great. Most likely it's because you don't communicate either early enough, so you don't give them time to respond, or you don't communicate well enough. And what do I mean with proper communication? It's actually danger pinging on their face. You should never ping the river, no one scouts the river. You should never ping your lane, no one scouts the lane. On their face, next to their champion characters. Now, if you're ahead but you can't win in step 2, right? The first thing that you gotta do is you gotta start zooming out of your lane. More likely than not, if you're tunnel visioning on the lane if you can't win but while ahead. And the main thing that I want you to look at is how are we using our lull states? So the periods in between the waves and the times that we're moving from lane to lane and the times that we're moving from base. Are we asking ourselves what is the next neutral objective? Are we pinging it? Yes or no? Are we warding and leaning properly towards that side where we want to be translating our lead towards either the strong side of the map or the side where the next neutral objective is, so we can set up the play in advance and also spot out the enemies if they try to contest that area, because that's our power as a mid lane. If we're ahead, we can always get first move, we can always be first to the play, and we control areas preventing the enemies from walking in, basically winning fights before they even start. And finally, and this is probably a really important one, because mid laners and junglers, they don't always go hand in hand properly. Mid laners don't really understand what junglers want, junglers don't really understand what mid laners want, and they're just off sync. Junglers ganking top, you're like, hey, I want to be ganking my Yumi bot. Stuff doesn't go together. You're going to be playing on the same side as the map as your jungle, because that way the plays are just a lot more high percentage. If you go and try to gank bot lane while your jungle is ganking top lane, what happens is that you run into the risk of running into the enemy jungle and potentially losing yourself the fight. Big, big mistake. Now the final thing. Mid-game. Mid-game is brutal. There's a lot of things that we can do in the mid-game, but the most important things that I see in my review session is that people aren't aware of neutral objectives. Their lull state usage isn't good enough. They're autopilot most of the time. And what happens is that they're then in a position where they are zoning out and they're lost on the map. Now, most of the time when you're struggling in the mid-game, that's because of this. It's 80% of the cases. It's crazy. That's right. A simple lull state fix, everyone can do this, is the biggest denominator in mid-game struggles. So I'm going to really recommend looking into your lull state usage, guys. Every single time you come from Blaze, especially the deployments are really important. Are you using your lull states properly? Are you asking yourself the question, what's next? And are you communicating it? Another thing is, are we playing towards a champion identity? If we're playing Orianna or Victor, are we controlling choke points? If we're playing Akali, are we utilizing the side lane to create mana advantages? Are you doing what your champion wants to do? Or are you A-ramming on mid as an Akali, in which you're not going to have any use? Another really important one is communication. I see a lot of people be desynced with their team because they don't properly understand how to communicate well. And a really good example is in combination with lull states. So what I find is that people, they don't know where the next neutral objective is. And then they say, yeah, but my team never plays for Dragon. True. Absolutely true. Because you're not communicating. You're not leading them. You gotta lead your teammates to these positions. You gotta lead your teammates to these plays. Because otherwise, they're not going to understand it as well. You gotta set you gotta tell your team where you want them to play. And the final thing is win conditions. And this is a little bit of a bit more of an advanced one. And it's going to start to get a little bit more interesting above Emerald. Below Emerald, not really. Win conditions are challenging to constantly think about. It's just a question you ask yourself. And if you're playing a champion that is a bit of a secondary carry, like LeBlanc, like Ahri, like Aurora, you need to be aware of who's going to be your primary carry. And a lot of players sometimes fall into the trap of playing for the wrong lane or trying to do too much on the wrong side of the map, leading there, for example, Jinx exposed, and then we're up against the Mundo, and we got no DPS, and we as mage like that can't deal with the Mundo, so we just automatically lose. This one is not that important, but definitely ask yourself these type of questions whenever you're Emerald Plus. Now, my final favorite bonus review tips is that if you're struggling with reviewing and you're like, I don't know what my issues are, Tim. I don't know in which step to start, Tim. It's too complicated. Just do this, okay? Just take one of these three and just do it. Figure out your first two deaths. Your first two deaths are usually big, clear indicators of problems in your gameplay. Figure out why you die, what exactly you missed, and what you can do in the future to prevent it. These two questions. The moment the game starts feeling awkward. So usually you're in control, you're in a fine position, and then bam, game just feels like a horror, like you can't do anything anymore. Go to that exact moment in the review, figure out why that's the case, and then figure out as well what exactly was the thing that you missed in game and what you can do against it in the future. Final thing, key skirmishes. What do I mean with that? Is go to the big skirmishes in the game, like around Baron, Dragon, that led to game-changing situations. And I want you to break those down through micro and macro. How we're using our abilities, could we have done more damage, but also was the play even good? Was it coherent with our champion identity? Did we set up the play well? These are key questions to ask yourself, which is going to allow you to see really valuable insights very quickly. As a final thing, once again, guys, keep it simple, okay? Don't do much more than 5 minutes. Focus on one thing, right? One step, one key question, one thing to improve upon. Otherwise, improving is really, really hard. Now, this was a really long video. I put a lot of effort in this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back next week with a new video. Peace out.